Good morning, everybody. How we doing today? All right, beautiful rainy Thursday out here outside the Nash Casino Studio. We have Francisco Maldonado on the, what is it, the ones and twos? And we got John Burrows here with us today.
Good morning.
How you guys doing?
Good day, good day. Hopefully the rain holds off. Some good stuff coming up, some interesting topics, stuff that hits close to home for all of us in the Merrimack Valley. So excited to get going, excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Hopefully we can get to cover all that. Francisco, how are you today? Oh, Francisco's over there working his magic on the board. We're new to this, you guys know that. So work with us, you know, and hopefully we can have some good conversation. You know, we'll keep it light, but at the same token, there's a lot of issues going on, like John mentioned here in the Valley, especially here at home, that I'd like to get into. I think in the second hour, there are two powerhouses in the respective unions at one point here. So I'd like to get you guys' input again in the second hour on the layoffs going on here in the city and the fact that, you know, they're talking about no representation, no union representation here. So definitely would like to dive into that when we get to the second hour. But I mean, what a crazy world we're living in today. I just went to the pump and it was almost $5. Diesel was a little over $6.
It's hurting, you know. My son just got his license. You know, we got him a vehicle for Christmas. You know, he's in his junior year over the vocational school, and you know he's working part time, plays sports, keeps his grades up, and he's like, Dad, it just cost me $90. That's why you don't drive around town. You go somewhere with a purpose. You go somewhere, make money, make something. And he's like, $90. Well, you wanted that big truck. You know, I'm like, you feel it and everything, you know. And I think you're seeing the crunch. You know, I seen you posted the other day about volunteer opportunities. So I think it's affected even the volunteer opportunities where, you know, you mentioned the Compass project that's seeking volunteers, and that's an awesome opportunity. So to get these people to, you know, fill up a tank of gas, run around and help out, and you know, the Compass is tied in with the Make-A-Wish, and it's like, what do we gotta do? How can you get people more involved and make it less of a burden on them?
And that's the thing. I mean, I was just thinking about that yesterday. I was like, I used to drive with the other company I was working with, a diesel Chevy 3500. I can only imagine what it is to fill that thing up right now. It's crazy. Nope.
I think, you know, as a representative with the Carpenters Union, and we're, you know, when we have new member orientation and we're talking about these people about representation and what to expect, right? You know, the more tools you have in the more tool bag, the more jobs you can do. But you don't need that $80,000 GMC Denali to drive yourself to work. You know, that little 95 Toyota Camry that gets, you know, 30 miles to a gallon, and it does the job. And you know, a lot of kids, they haven't felt the recession where you could be laid off. You know, I know we're going to talk about layoffs soon, but they don't know what it's like not to have a 50-hour work week and get that overtime and this and that. And you always tell them save. You know, I tell my son that. Oh, I want this. They get that money in their pocket and it's out there quick. And it's like, hey, save. You don't know when you're gonna need it. And now I think he's watching that bank account. You know, filled up the truck, you know, a week ago. He's like, Dad. I'm like, yeah.
Me and Nick, my treasurer. That's how people know him. You know him as Nick. Everybody knows him as my treasurer. We were talking about that yesterday, and it's like, I'm navigating a whole different world than I was a year ago when I was on my hands and knees making money for somebody else. You know, now I'm a business owner. My truck broke, so now I'm trying to get a truck, and now I'm thinking, what kind of truck am I going to get? Because I'm going to get crushed at the gas pump, this and that. And one thing I've learned from different boards I'm on and different organizations I deal with now, go help out with whatever I can do, as opposed to before. It's like you need to have it's I'm sorry guys, I actually woke up nervous this morning, which it never happens. I woke up nervous about coming on here to talk to you guys.
Well, anytime, if I go over to a vocational school and I'm talking, let's say Grid Oil Tech, right? Awesome kids, I get aces out of there every year. There's a stellar student that comes out of that school and joins our union. And you tell them, all right, oh, I'm gonna own my own company, I'm gonna do this, all right, well, where you gonna get your help? Where you gonna train your help? All right, now the overhead on your job, all right, the contractor actually, it's 20 minutes out of the day that he makes a profit on you, out of 8 hours, and that's without you cutting a piece of sheetrock for the ceiling and pulling the wrong number and messing up any of the materials, the overhead. So the thought that the contractor's making this enormous amount of money off you is not necessarily the case. You know, the cost of materials. You know, I know you as a mason. I remember, bricks were 50 cents a piece.
Me too. I've been doing this for 22 years now. I just gave somebody a price for a set, and it literally took me almost a week because I ran the numbers. And I'd like to think, and I talked to different companies, I talked to different people, and they're pretty much ready to hire me, like sub me out because my price is so low. I have no overhead, so I'm making money. I'm good. I ran the numbers for almost a week straight, and even before I sent the estimate out, I ran them again, and I'm like, are you kidding me? The material cost was almost as much as my labor cost, which is insane. I couldn't believe it. 50 square feet of veneer stone is $1,000. Like, are you kidding me? Right now, literally $3,500 just on materials for this step. Like, I ended up cutting a little bit even of my money over the top. I kind of know this person, and it was still like when I went to type in how much it was under the estimate, I was like, oh my lord, like what can I do? But if I went any lower, it wouldn't even be worth it. Like I would be making more money than me.
And people, you add your fuel in that, and then, good luck trying, I remember we were in high school, there was 7 brothers and they all had their own masonry companies and they jumped back and forth and they'd come through, all right, we want to do the labor, half the football team was, carrying bricks for these guys and mixing cement during the summer to make money, and it was like, oh, Jimmy's gonna give me an extra $1 an hour, I'm going with Jimmy this week, oh, what, no loyalty, and they'd go back and forth, so maintaining that help, it's difficult, especially when times are tough.
No, and that's the problem. Like I remember when I first started working, back in '03, I was getting $10 an hour in labor, and that was top dog. I was making big money, like compared to everybody else. It's like, what are you guys doing? Get your life together. I'm making 10. Now you can't even get a guy to show up on time for $25 an hour.
There was a national study done in 2023. Out of 2.1 million construction workers, 19% were misclassified.
Really?
Whether it be a subcontractor to curve, workman's comp insurance, or payroll status, I 1099 the job to them, and then a week before the job ends, hey, you know what, I need your social security number just to file this paperwork, and all of a sudden you get a 1099 in the mail saying you owe for 40 grand or whatever. It was like a $5.1 billion tax decrease because of what people were doing to the workforce out there.
And that's the thing. I've said it. Hold on one second. We get a text here on the Milltown Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical line. Since the damage and destruction to the environment didn't wake us up to changing our life, maybe this increased cost to our pockets. We need to consider alternatives to gas, gasoline cars and trucks. The rest of the world is going electric, but our leaders owes the oil companies, so we're going backwards. It's going to cost us for a long time unless we change our ways soon. And I don't disagree that we need to find an alternative, but at the same token, everything requires petroleum, requires oil. In order to plastics, everything like that. Like now we're not mining for oil, we're mining for lithium. And I'm not pushing back because I don't disagree with you that we need to have a way to become more dependent. Not to get too into it, but like when I was doing my deep dive on Front Runner City, and it's, the cat's out of the bag, everybody knows like Oman is funding They're the ones that are investing this and that. But one thing that I found that was fascinating is their push over there, which I think that's what they're trying to bring to blue hydrogen. And I guess when you're producing oil, blue hydrogen is just rampantly running through the warehouse. So they're trying to find a way. They have two options in mind. Either next to buy, or actually try to do something for the world. Which obviously now they can find a way to really up or down on this blue hydrogen. It's all about money, but it's one of those where now they're actually the ones seeking for alternatives. Well, now if they can find a way to pull that blue hydrogen, it'll increase, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a drunken night in Puerto Rico, I've talked about that many times, so, things might have got blurred a little bit. But if they can, right now they produce 800 million gallons of oil. If they can control that blue hydrogen and get that down, it'll actually increase their production, but at the same token, they'll be producing blue hydrogen. So now they're, burning the candle, dipping into both cookie jars so they can get both. So blue hydrogen might be something that, when we first started having the conversation of hydrogen, because I didn't know this, again, drunken night in Puerto Rico, there's 3 types of hydrogen. The first 2, they're not sustainable, but that blue hydrogen, U.S. Motor is pushing where they're starting to, and again, correct me anytime if I'm wrong, they're figured out a way, well, they didn't figure it out, but they made it better, to get blue hydrogen from plastic bottles. So you're talking, we can reduce our waste, our landfills, our oceans, save the turtles, and at the same token, we can push blue hydrogen, which hydrogen cars. I don't know about you, but I've been hearing about hydrogen cars from flying cars since I was a kid. Here we are, 2026. I don't see no flying cars. I want a flying car.
I got an electric ride-on lawnmower, ride over one, plugs right into my house. Cut my yard. I have a regular gas one as well. There was a sale at Home Depot. The thing was marked down from like $7,400 to $750.
That's the best.
So it was like a 1-day sale. We ended up buying a few of them, but the thing runs great. It's quiet. I usually sit around, wait for that one guy in the neighborhood to start up his lawnmower on a Saturday or weed whack. I'm like, yep, it was you, Johnny. The thing runs great, but like you said, there's alternatives out there, right? And when you burn the candle at both ends, you talk about corporate greed and a different level. When you try putting, it's like your kid trying to reach in the cookie jar. Before then, you're gonna smack that hand. So anyone at that bottom tier, the bottom, 1% of America, they'll never put your hand in that cookie jar because that's corporate money, and the top will always stay up there. And until you get honest politicians that aren't billionaires, that get in it for what they really got into it for, stand up for the working class. You'll hear them all in a couple weeks, I'm paying attention to who's talking about the audit, right? Yeah. If you ain't for an audit about opening up your books, how our money's, being spent, I'm not gonna support it.
Ooh, speaking of the audit, and I want to touch on what you just said too. I don't know if I should say this until we get closer to it, but yesterday, I booked the state auditor.
I'm not opening my books.
For June 11 at 9 o'clock. She's coming to Lowell to sit down with me to have an interview, which to me, I was, maybe that's why I woke up nervous this morning. But you brought up a good point. But the way I look at it is, instead of me smacking my hand, 2 hands can't fit in that cookie jar. So, in my house, I'm usually the one trying to get that cookie before dinner. So we get a bigger cookie jar, so both me and my kids' hand can fit in there. And I think that, like you said, if we start electing ideologues, electing people that are pushing a narrative. If you go to your politician and you read their palm card, or you hear their commercial, hopefully here on WCAP at the National Casino Studio, we'll talk about it. If you hear the same thing out of their mouth running for a local office that you hear for somebody running for president, are they really working for you, or they're just pushing that narrative from Washington down your throat? So because you're already so worked out, Well, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, whether you're upset because of, Roe versus Wade being just decimated, or you're upset of the way that the previous administration handled the asylum, I don't care. Now, you have these local politicians and they're shoving that down your throat. What does that matter for our park farming park, for the 45 people, allegedly, maybe even up to 60 people that just got laid off? What does it matter to that?
I think we touched on it last time when we said, you're gonna worry about going down to Washington, cutting the White House lawn, or you're gonna take care of Jose's lawn first, take care of your own yard.
Get your house in order before you try to change the world.
Exactly, and it's holding people accountable, I think people are tired of getting lip service. Hearing the palm card, the postcard, reading off that, and then when people get there, they forget where they came from. I think, hearing Anthony Lake talk, you get excited when you hear someone like that talk, hey, I'm here for a reason, hey, if you don't wanna endorse me, that's fine, I'm not gonna change my word, I'm not gonna change who I am, and hearing that's impressive, that's what I want, if people ask, I'm like, I was in the game 10 years, I was on the planning board, I was on the school committee, millions of different subcommittees, a lot, and I was on the select board for 6 years, and I told people, I go, really didn't wanna run that, I'm not a lifer, I go up there, I made some policies that were for the working class people, for the people who work in the bed, and I partnered up, and met some great people in Lowell, I knew through the years, Corey Robinson reached out, hey, how do we get some of that language in here? I'm like, it's not a union thing, non-union thing, it's local work for local people, the residents of Lowell deserve to work on projects where their tax dollars are. And kind of what Diane was saying, Mr. Zoglia, it's like, open up the books, let's see who's doing these projects with that money, who bidded on these projects, it all ties in, It's difficult, people don't wanna open it up, but, if you get into politics, you can become a millionaire, I'm like, people tell me, I work for you, I go, yeah, if it breaks it down, I get a nickel, it was a nickel a year from every resident in Berwick, told up to what your stipend is, so a lady was yelling at me, she's like, God, you work for me, I'm like, here's your nickel, I'm sorry, I didn't produce, I'm like, I feel bad, but.
You said something there, like, that's the way, and I tell everybody, like, cause, I get plenty of phone calls, there's not many conversations I have where it's like, we ain't gonna run again. We ain't gonna run again. I didn't go away, because behind the scenes, I think I even said it to you, it's not about me. It's about changing the culture. If I can change the culture where people are voting, people are getting involved, and there's somebody in that seat that's doing a good job, at the end of the day, I'm a resident, I'm a citizen, before I'm a radio person, God, I don't know whose bright idea that was, radio, but whatever I am now to you, before that, I'm a resident and I'm a citizen. And if I feel represented, when I go home, I stay home. There's no need for me to run. What am I gonna run, just to get a title, to get the health care, to get 25,000?
Whoa, you get 25 grand and healthcare?
I know, you gotta move down there.
Cisco, you got room at your place?
You should see his basement, it's nice, too.
Right?
You guys are welcome.
You got a bar down, a nice bar and everything down there?
Oh, man.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, and that's the thing though, I wouldn't run again just for the title. If anything, I'm having fun doing what I'm doing now, where we can bring up issues, we can have real conversations, there's no political ramifications, like, I'm a Mason, that's my opinion.
I was on my way back from Las Vegas from our international training center, and I went out there for some training, I was flying back, and I'm like, I built more stuff on a weekend than a majority of these planning board members, and that's when I first ran, I lost my first election by 22 votes.
He was by 24.
And people are like, you wanna recount? I'm like, no, I'm cool, it's the first time I ever ran. Next year I got in, and I'm like, all right, going through the process, you don't get paid, being involved, because you like helping people out, helping these projects. I think my phone rings just as much now.
Yeah.
There's a thing coming up for our friend Nick, there's a big benefit coming up from the playground project down in Berwick, and there's a bench donation and all
I'm
that.
gonna cut you short though, because time is short, and I wanna actually talk about that, like, that was a part of the few things. So, next hour, we have the union perspective, especially with who better to ask than you two, on the layoffs. And I wanna touch more on how you guys know him, not his Nick, but my treasurer's, mom's foundation that's really taken off. Trust me, I hate to tell you, sure, but we literally got like probably 6 weeks to get to it. Oh, we got a minute? All right, so we'll bank those for right now, but no, and I think people don't understand that, and it's good to have you here and talk to you about that if you wanna be a career politician, you're not gonna represent people.
Yeah, you'll be short-lived. You know, if you wanna, you get in it to help people, you know, and that's what we are doing.
We'll leave you guys with this, and Anthony said it, and it should apply to every politician. When he runs into a fire, he doesn't care what color you are, what your sexual, anything other than, are you safe? Your politician should be feeling the same way, other than, instead of being safe, you being represented.
How can I help you?
We'll be back in probably 13 minutes. Yeah, we'll see you soon. Yeah, that was good. You didn't tell me you were a little cut off. I think I read about Facebook Live, but we don't have a good angle.
Oh, I can say, well, we have you.
No, it's just in general.
Put it on the thing right there.